They thought killing her would break humanity. Instead, it woke the one man the galaxy swore could never return. The soldier the stars themselves named Deathwalker. Before we begin, hit subscribe so you never miss the stories that shake the universe. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if someone hurt the one you loved?
They said the galaxy had grown civilized. They said diplomacy replaced violence, that trials replaced vengeance, that the days of public executions were long gone. But the day the Dominion dragged Dr. Miles into their crystalline court chamber, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Billions across dozens of worlds tuned in, not because they believed she was guilty, but because the Dominion made sure the broadcast was everywhere. Every screen, every datapad, every public plaza, every orbiting station. Their message was simple, arrogant, absolute. This is what happens when a human challenges the Dominion. Alara stood alone in the center of the shimmering platform, wrists locked in glowing restraints, ankles chained to the metallic floor. Her face carried exhaustion, but her spine remained straight, unwavering. She had been held without food, interrogated for days, smeared with fabricated charges of espionage, sabotage, treason against the galaxy, lies crafted carefully to justify a political spectacle. The crowd of alien dignitaries watched from elevated balconies, their jeweled robes reflecting the cold blue lights. They expected fear. They expected pleading. Humanity, in their eyes, remained a species of soft, emotional creatures too new to the galactic stage to understand what true power looked like. But Alara Miles only lifted her chin higher. The Dominion High Justicar unfurled his ridged crest, booming his voice through the chamber. Dr. Alara Miles of Earth, you are accused of undermining the Dominion's rightful authority. The evidence is irrefutable. The sentence is death. Gasps echoed from the far worlds watching. On Earth, millions shouted at their screens. On Mars, settlers pounded tables in disbelief. On the orbital academies circling Jupiter, cadets froze mid-training, their instructors silent. Across every human colony, the same question trembled through the air. How could they execute a diplomat? Alara exhaled slowly. She did not beg. She did not cry. She did not even flinch. When allowed to speak, she looked directly into the main broadcast lens, knowing exactly where it was positioned, knowing billions of humans would see her face, hear her voice. I did not betray the Dominion, she said calmly. I exposed corruption within your ruling council. I believed the truth mattered. I see now. I was wrong. The Justicar snarled, offended by her composure. Alara continued, voice steady, resonant, unmistakably human. To my people watching across the stars, do not mourn me. Do not regret that I stood up for what was right. If justice cost my life, then so be it. Humans do not bow to tyrants. Her gaze softened, and her final words aimed at a single person became a blade that would carve history. To my husband, Rian, I kept my promise. I never bowed. A tremor rippled across the chamber. An aide hissed in the Justicar's ear. Sir, perhaps restricting the broadcast. Let them watch, the Justicar snapped. Let them learn their place. The execution device descended from the ceiling, an elegant crystalline lattice hum glowing with lethal energy. Dominion technology was always extravagant, always theatrical. They didn't kill for necessity. They killed for spectacle. The lattice aligned above her head, forming a shimmering cage of light. The aliens watched with predatory fascination, waiting for the moment when the human facade would crack. It didn't. Alara stood tall until the very second the light took her. She never blinked, never faltered, never gave the Dominion the satisfaction of fear. A burst of pure, soundless radiance engulfed her form. Her silhouette dissolved like a shadow devoured by dawn. And then she was gone. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then, the Dominion emblem flashed across the broadcast. Justice served. Across the galaxy, chaos erupted. On Earth, protests exploded instantly. People stormed public plazas, chanting her name, screaming at the sky. Government officials shouted over one another in emergency meetings, diplomats demanding explanations, military generals slamming fists on polished tables. In the outer colonies, miners halted entire production networks. Traders shut down orbital markets. Soldiers across every branch of the Terran defense network stood in stunned rage. But one reaction stood apart from all others. A hushed, fearful whisper began spreading through veterans, through commanders, through the oldest ranks who remembered stories the newer generations considered exaggerated folklore. A name long buried beneath treaties and silence. A name humanity promised never to invoke again. Someone tell her husband. No, we can't. He has to know. Do you understand what will happen if he sees this? He deserves to know. On a quiet, isolated homestead at the edge of Earth's northern forests, far from the cities and far from the noise of civilization, a single encrypted comm unit blinked with an emergency override, one reserved for only the most catastrophic events. The message played automatically, the broadcast replaying the execution with merciless clarity. Inside that small cabin, surrounded only by pine trees and cold wind, a man stood motionless, broad-shouldered, silent, a presence like a dormant storm. His face unreadable, his breathing disturbingly calm, as if even grief feared to disturb him. Rian Miles watched his wife die without a sound leaving his throat. His hands did not shake. His eyes did not redden. His posture did not break. Inside him, something far worse than grief awakened. Something he had buried years ago. Something the galaxy hoped would stay buried forever. A quiet knock sounded at his door. An officer from Terran High Command, out of breath, terrified not of the news but of the man receiving it. Commander Miles, I'm so sorry. We didn't know they'd. Rian, please. We need you to stay calm. Orders from the council say. Rian turned slowly. The officer stepped back instantly. There were moments in history where entire wars pivoted not on armies, not on strategies, but on a single expression. Rian's expression was one the galaxy would remember. A calm, cold, emotionless stillness that radiated something ancient and lethal. He walked past the officer without a word, moving toward a sealed vault embedded in the cabin floor. The officer's eyes widened. Sir, please don't. That armor was decommissioned. You know what the treaties say. If you activate it. Rian typed in a code only he knew. The vault hissed open, releasing a whisper of cold air. Inside lay midnight black armor, the plates matte and silent, absorbing all light. It was unmistakable. It was forbidden. It was feared. Project Revenant. The armor of the warrior the galaxy named with dread. Deathwalker. The officer stumbled backward. Commander, Rian, please. This will start a war. The council forbids. Rian's voice was quiet. Too quiet. The Dominion already started a war. He reached into the vault and retrieved Alera's necklace. A simple silver chain she never removed. He closed his fist around it, knuckles white, breath steady. You executed my wife, he whispered. Now I will execute your fate. The officer didn't try to stop him. Nobody ever would again. Because across the stars, in the darkest corners of the galaxy, old veterans felt a chill crawl through their bones. Deathwalker had returned, and the Dominion had no idea what it had unleashed. Rian Miles had once been the most feared soldier in 3 sectors, but most humans alive had never seen him fight. They only heard fragments of classified rumors, half-whispered stories from retired generals, archived logs sealed behind layers of red tape. Even his name, Deathwalker, was spoken carefully, like invoking something that should never wake. To many, he was a myth. To the Dominion, he was a nightmare they prayed had died out. To Alera, he had been a man who promised to leave violence behind forever. He had kept that promise for years. He vanished from the world, abandoned combat, and built a quiet life with the only person who saw him not as a monster, not as a legend, but as a man. He let the galaxy forget who he was. He let his past rot in silence. But the moment the Dominion executed Alera, the past clawed its way back, merciless and alive. As he stood before the dormant armor, his mind drifted to the day he buried his military identity. He remembered throwing away medals, deleting commendations, burning the emblem of his old unit. He had sworn never to lift a weapon again. He had sworn to Alara that he would never become the thing that terrified entire species. She once cupped his scarred hands and whispered, "You're more than what they made you." For years, he believed her, but the broadcast shattered that belief with terrifying efficiency. Rian tapped the activation node on the armor. A deep, resonant hum rippled through the cabin as plates disengaged from their locks, unfolding like a waking predator. The black alloy drank the dim light around them. Each segment was engineered for one purpose: relentless, unstoppable combat. No bright colors, no banners, no insignias. Only the dark silence of a weapon designed to erase threats with surgical, horrifying precision. The command officer who delivered the news stood pale and shaking near the doorway. He looked as if he wanted to speak again, but could not make himself approach. His voice cracked. "Rian, once you put that on, there's no going back." "The treaties." Rian's reply cut through the room like steel. "I didn't write those treaties." "You were the reason those treaties exist," the officer blurted, instantly regretting it. But the truth had escaped, raw and trembling. "The Dominion still has nightmares about your last operation. You shut down an entire warfront alone. I was human," Rian said coldly. "Until today." The officer swallowed hard. "What are you now?" Rian slid the first plate of the Revenant armor onto his forearm. It sealed with a soft click. A consequence. One by one, the plates locked into place. Artificial muscle fibers awakened under the armor surface. Internal systems synced to his neural patterns. The HUD flickered alive with threat assessments, star maps, Dominion outpost locations, encryption keys he was never supposed to access again. Every classified protocol recognized his identity and unlocked itself, as if relieved its true operator had returned. He slipped Alara's necklace beneath the chest plate, letting the cool metal rest against his skin. A silent vow formed around it. The last piece of the man he had been. Terran High Command attempted connection after connection, emergency channel after emergency channel. He rejected everyone. They had their diplomacy. They had their committees. They had their fear of provoking war. But the Dominion had already crossed a line no government, no treaty, no council could mend. Rian walked out of the cabin and stepped into the cold wind. The officer followed, breathless, desperate. "I have to at least inform command where you're going." "You can tell them one thing," Rian said without turning back. "I'm going to collect what the Dominion owes." He triggered the Revenant Armor's integrated jump pack. A silent shockwave of compressed air burst outward as he soared into the sky. Before the officer could blink, Rian vanished beyond the clouds. He landed at a restricted Terran orbital hangar minutes later, bypassing every lock and override as if they were designed solely for him to break. Engineers scattered like prey encountering a predator. No one approached him. No one spoke. They simply stared at the towering black figure walking toward the docking bay containing a single vessel. The Vesper, his old personal strike ship, decommissioned and sealed for emergency-only use that no one expected to ever see again. When he entered the hangar, the ship's onboard AI recognized him instantly. "Welcome back, Commander Miles. Warning, your authorization is classified as dormant. Do you wish to re-enter active status?" "Yes," he said. Full reinstatement. "Confirmed. Initializing offensive protocols. Are you deploying alone?" Rian stepped into the cockpit. "Always." The Vesper lifted from the hangar with a muted rumble, engines shifting from stealth mode to void transit. Terran Command finally managed to force a direct link through secure military channels. Admiral Harrow's face appeared on the screen, stern but visibly shaken. "Rian," she said with tension in her voice, "stand down. This isn't the way. We're negotiating with the Dominion right now. We can't let this spiral into an interstellar war." "It already has," he answered. "If you strike them," she insisted, "they'll retaliate. And then Earth will be blamed for unleashing you. We barely contained the fallout last time." Rian's expression didn't flicker. "I'm not striking them. I'm ending them." "Rian." He cut the channel. The Vesper's engines ignited fully, shooting in a slipstream with a thunderous flare. Star systems blurred into streaks. Coordinates locked onto the Dominion's outer supply ring, a place where their security was weakest and arrogance highest. Rian sat alone in the cockpit, surrounded by the quiet hum of weapons systems warming inside the ship's core. He replayed Alera's last moments in his mind, not as a broadcast, not as a political execution, but as the final betrayal of a promise they made, that the galaxy was safe enough for her to change it. He had encouraged her. He had believed she could make a difference without risking herself. He had believed his retirement meant peace. He had been wrong. Humans were many things, fragile, emotional, stubborn, reckless. But one truth ran deeper than all others. When you take someone a human loves, the entire species becomes something else. Something ancient. Something relentless. Something the galaxy had consistently underestimated since first contact. Rian didn't rage. Rage was temporary. What filled him now was something quieter and infinitely more dangerous. A cold, patient, calculated resolve. A clarity of purpose that removed hesitation and fear. The Dominion wanted to humiliate humanity. Instead, they resurrected the one man who had mastered the art of war so completely that entire alien cultures wrote cautionary fables about him. The Vesper dropped out a slipstream above the Dominion's outer rim. Their sensors detected his arrival instantly, alarms flaring across patrol channels. Rian heard the panic chatter through intercepted frequencies. Unidentified ship, black armor signature detected, possible human military origin, unusual readings from the vessel. Match, gods, this can't be. That can't be the Deathwalker. Humans decommissioned him, right? Right. Rian switched on the comm, his voice transmitted to the first patrol ship with chilling calm. Take me to the ones responsible for my wife. Anyone who delays me dies. The patrol vessel turned and fled, broadcasting a warning deeper into Dominion territory. Fear spread faster than any weapon. The legend they tried to bury had crawled back into the light. Rian didn't smile. He didn't speak again. He only locked onto the next set of coordinates. The hunt had begun. The Dominion's outer rim faltered long before Rian fired a single shot. Fear radiated through their communication networks like a viral plague, each officer repeating the same question with trembling disbelief. Is Deathwalker real? Veterans who had survived the old war whispered frantic warnings to their commanders, reminding them of the worlds that fell, not because Rian Miles raised them, but because he walked through their armies without slowing down. He was an equation the Dominion could never solve, a myth they hoped humanity had buried. And now he had returned with nothing left to lose. As the Vesper closed in on the first defense cluster, Dominion captains issued contradictory orders. Some demanded he be intercepted. Others begged their crews to retreat. Rian listened without emotion, filtering the frequencies automatically. Every voice carried fear. Every voice carried guilt. Every voice belonged to someone who served the regime that murdered Alera. The first cruiser attempted a challenge, not out of courage, but out of bureaucratic panic. Its weapons powered up, cannons aimed at the Vesper's hull. Rian didn't bother activating his shields. He waited. The cruiser fired a barrage of plasma bolts, brilliant arcs streaking across the void. They dissipated before they even touched his ship's surface, absorbed by an energy-dampening field far more advanced than what humanity legally admitted to possessing. Rian opened a single channel to the cruiser. You have one chance. The captain stammered through the response. Identify yourself. You already know who I am. No. The Deathwalker is a human fabrication. Rian ended the call. He locked onto the cruiser's engines and fired a precision rail burst. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't violent. It was efficient. The cruiser's thrusters melted instantly, shutting down propulsion as the massive vessel began falling into planetary orbit, drifting helplessly. He didn't kill them. Not yet. Let them carry the message. Let them tremble. Let the fear spread deeper. The Vesper glided past the crippled cruiser like a shark ignoring a wounded fish. Further inside Dominion territory, panic escalated into hysteria. Orders shifted from engage to evacuate strategic posts, then shifted again to protect the High Council at all costs. Every Dominion station he passed attempted to contact him. Some pleaded, some threatened, some lied, trying to convince him the execution was unauthorized, a mistake, a political miscalculation. Rian ignored them all. In the cockpit, he reviewed the Dominion court logs, every file associated with Alara's trial. He saw how they fabricated evidence. He saw how they silenced the witnesses she tried to protect. He saw the High Justicar's signature approving the public broadcast. And he saw the final directive. Her death will teach humanity its place. Rian whispered into the empty cockpit, "You taught the wrong lesson." He pushed the Vesper into high-velocity transit toward the Dominion's judgment sector, the administrative heart of their justice network. If the Dominion wanted humanity to learn humility, Rian would teach them consequence. Every outpost along the route detected his approach and immediately shut down power grids, hoping to appear abandoned. It didn't matter. Rian wasn't hunting buildings. He was hunting the ones who orchestrated her death. A squadron of elite Dominion interceptors finally formed a blockade near the sector's threshold. These were not standard patrol units. Their hulls gleamed with obsidian plating, engines pulsing with advanced gravity drives. They moved with coordinated precision, forming a sharp perimeter around the Vesper. The squadron commander transmitted in a strained but authoritative voice. "Human vessel, you are trespassing in restricted Dominion territory. Power down your ship and prepare to..." Rian cut him off. "Move. You will comply or be destroyed. This is your final warning." "This is mine." Rian's voice was unervingly calm. "You're in my way." The squadron opened fire. Their weapons didn't miss. Dominion elite pilots didn't miss anything. But their perfect aim didn't matter. Rian's ship danced through the barrage with terrifying precision, weaving through beams before sensors could track the movements. The Vesper's systems were an extension of his mind, and his mind was a weapon sharpened by grief. He disabled the lead interceptor with a gravity pulse that snapped its wings clean off. Another attempted a flank maneuver. He clipped its engine core with a micro-missile that detonated silently. A third tried to ram him head-on in desperation. Rian swerved upward at the last millisecond and slammed an electromagnetic shockwave into its hull, sending it spinning into a collision with its own wingman. Not one of them died. They weren't the ones he came for, but they learned why Deathwalker was feared. He erased their strength without killing them, turning their best into debris scattered across the void. When the final interceptor drifted powerless, its commander made a broken transmission. Please don't enter the judgment sector. They'll kill us if we fail." Rian responded with the coldest truth. "They'll wish they had." He flew past the remains of the blockade and entered the judgment sector. The Dominion's central tribunal station, a colossal structure of black crystal and steel, hovered above a pale green moon, its spires radiating authority. Billions of civilians across their empire recognized the station. It was the symbol of the Dominion's absolute power. Tonight, it was a tomb waiting to be opened. Rian landed the Vesper directly onto the tribunal platform. Alarms blared. Dozens of guards rushed forward, weapons drawn, trembling despite their armor. The Dominion had bred these guards for unwavering obedience, trained them to fear nothing. Yet every one of them hesitated when the Vesper's ramp descended and a lone figure stepped onto the platform. The Revenant armor looked more like a shadow given shape than a suit. Its matte plates drank the station's light, rendering Rian almost unreal. Dominion soldiers froze, their instincts screaming warnings their training couldn't suppress. Rian walked forward at a measured pace, each step echoing through the chamber like the ticking of a war-bound clock. The first guard captain raised his rifle with shaking hands. "Identify yourself," or... Rian appeared in front of him before he finished the sentence. The captain blinked, confused. Rian hadn't teleported. He had simply moved faster than the captain's eyes could track. "I warned the Dominion," Rian said quietly, his hand closing around the captain's rifle barrel. The alloy crumpled like paper. "You didn't listen." He nudged the captain aside, not with violence, but with utter dismissal. The other guards charged, shouting, firing weapons that glanced uselessly off his armor. Rian advanced through the hail of gunfire without slowing. He didn't kill them. He didn't need to. Every punch disarmed. Every step disabled. Every movement broke a weapon or removed a threat with surgical elegance. Within seconds, the entire squad lay groaning on the floor, alive but defeated. Rian headed toward the tribunal hall doors. They towered over him, gilded with symbols of Dominion law. He pressed his palm against the center panel. The armor's systems surged, sending a pulse of kinetic force through the metal. The doors buckled outward and slammed open. Inside, the High Justicar and his council rose from their seats, faces pale, eyes wide with primal fear. Rian stepped into the hall, the silhouette of a man who had already accepted death if it meant delivering judgment. The High Justicar trembled. "Why you can't be here? You executed my wife," Rian said. "Now you answer to me." And for the first time in Dominion history, the ones who claimed to judge the galaxy stood face to face with a human who had come to judge them. The ships that followed Marcus across the void expected to meet a human warrior. What they met instead was a force that moved like inevitability, like the closing of a great cosmic hand. The Traxori border outpost saw his transponder code, Deathwalker, and immediately triggered evacuation protocols, their commanders screaming contradictory orders as thousands of alarms wailed through metallic corridors. Yet Marcus didn't fire on them. He simply passed, letting them choke on their own fear. Every kilometer he closed toward the capital turned their carefully built systems into knots of panic. Entire fleets abandoned their posts. Patrol routes collapsed. Carriers overloaded their engines, trying to escape his predicted path. Marcus didn't need to strike them. His reputation did it for him. But the closer he came to the Traxori heart world, the more his anger sharpened into something colder than vengeance. He played the visual recording of Lyra's execution over and over until it no longer induced rage, only clarity. The moment her eyes rose to the sky, as if she sensed him across the stars. The moment her jaw set because she refused to give her captors the satisfaction of seeing fear. The moment the blade came down and the crowd roared. Marcus didn't watch it to suffer. He watched it to remember the promise forged inside that instant. They will pay for every heartbeat she lost. Humanity's response fleet traveled a day behind him, carrying diplomats, analysts, strategists, and 1,000 soldiers who wanted revenge. But Marcus had no intention of being slowed by committees or negotiations. He didn't come for treaties or corrections of international law. He came for the ones who ordered it and the ones who cheered it. The Traxori capital planet, Vorthal Prime, filled the front viewport like a swollen, diseased pearl. Once, it had been known for its architecture and its military academies. Now it was known for one thing, playing a human woman's death as entertainment. The orbital defenses targeted Deathwalker immediately, automatic systems locking onto his trajectory with clinical precision. Towers unfolded, cannons charged, missile hatches snapped open. Marcus recognized every weapon system. They were the same models the Traxori proudly displayed at the trial. They bragged that no human craft could breach their network. The AI inside his ship displayed firing solutions. Marcus ignored them. Instead, he armed a single gravity spear, tuned not to blast but to disrupt. He targeted nothing on the planet. He targeted the orbital network itself. When he fired, the weapon unfolded a localized gravitational twist that rippled through the entire defense grid. Shields buckled. Targeting systems scrambled. Orbital cannons rebooted in cascading failure loops. Missile guidance arrays turned inward, confused. Within 20 seconds, the entire planetary defense ring went blind. Marcus didn't destroy it. He simply disabled everything they claimed made them powerful. He descended alone. As his ship pierced the clouds, Traxori Naval Command broadcast surrender notices, pleas, threats, and finally sanctions, none of which he responded to. They didn't deserve his voice. He landed in the same courtyard where Lyra had died, where millions of Traxori citizens had cheered. The same raised platform stood there, stained. The same grotesque banners fluttered, celebrating their so-called victory against human aggression. The moment he stepped out, thousands of civilians fled, trampling each other in their desperation. But not all. Not the ones who thought their numbers protected them. Not the officers who believed their uniforms still held authority. not the elites who believed nothing could touch them. They had built a spectacle around his wife's death. Now he gave them something they would never forget. He activated the ship's external holocasters. A single projection filled the sky. Lyra's final stare, unflinching, unbroken. Every citizen on the planet was forced to look at the face they had murdered. Marcus stood beneath the apparition, silent, letting their guilt crush them. Traxori, soldiers crawled out of their barracks, trembling. Commanders dropped their weapons. A priest fell to his knees, whispering prayers to gods who would not intervene. When Marcus finally spoke, his voice resonated through the translators of every device on the planet. "You executed a human woman," he said, each word slow, measured. "You celebrated. You broadcast her death to every world you owned. You thought humanity would accept humiliation. You thought we would remain silent." His visor retracted, revealing eyes hollowed by grief, yet blazing with something that made even the hardest Traxori flinch. "You were wrong." A dozen generals marched forward as if to negotiate, but Marcus cut them off with a glance. He pointed to the execution stand. "Bring me the one who ordered her death." The generals tried to stall, but political pressure collapsed under pure terror. Soldiers dragged out High Prefect Jertal, the man who had stood above Lyra as she died, the man who had smirked at the camera. He was thrown before Marcus like refuse. Marcus stepped closer until they were face to face. "Do you remember her eyes?" he asked. Jertal trembled violently. "I acted according to our laws." Marcus didn't let him finish. Humans do not care for the laws of cowards. He didn't attack, not physically. Instead, he activated the Deathwalker implant, a device few humans possessed and none survived casually. A pulse of biomagnetic pressure radiated from him, freezing Jertal in place. Marcus forced the prefect to watch the recording of Lyra's last moments. But now from Marcus's perspective, the agony, the helplessness, the scream that never fully left his throat. Jertal broke in seconds, collapsing, begging for mercy. "You showed her none," Marcus whispered. He left the prefect on the ground, shaking uncontrollably. He didn't kill him. Death was too kind. Living with the weight of what he witnessed would be far worse. But Marcus wasn't finished. He transmitted a single file to every Traxori ship, every colony, every military stronghold. The Treaty of Non-Aggression with Humanity, rewritten, new terms, new consequences, a warning encoded in their own language. Harm a human again, and your species will face the full weight of Deathwalker. Then Marcus turned away from them and returned to his ship. The Traxori crowd parted like a sea around him, terrified to breathe in his direction. He hadn't destroyed their planet. He hadn't fired on their cities. He hadn't massacred their soldiers. But he had ended their empire. Because fear, real fear, could shatter any civilization faster than bombs. As he ascended back into orbit, the trailing human fleet finally arrived. Diplomats prepared to negotiate. Officers prepared to secure the area. Marcus gave them one transmission before jumping away. "It's done. No triumph. No boast. Just a grieving man who kept a promise." Marcus didn't jump back to Earth immediately. The stars outside his viewport blurred past as he guided Deathwalker into the quiet dark between systems, a region where no traffic lanes existed, no colonies glowed, and no military patrols wandered. It was a place where he could finally breathe without being surrounded by diplomats, soldiers, or the haunted eyes of Traxori who had learned fear too late. His grief had been a storm while he moved, but out here, in the cold silence of interstellar night, it became something heavier, an ache that pressed into every nerve. He replayed Lyra's smile, the way she used to raise one eyebrow when she knew he was overthinking something, the way she'd whisper, "Come back to me," whenever he left on deployment. He whispered to the dark that he had come back as fast as he could, just not fast enough. Humanity sent 3 encrypted messages to him. The first requested a full report. The second urged him to return for a debrief and political cleanup. The third, from command directly, was softer. "You're not alone. Come home when you're ready." Marcus didn't answer any of them. Words meant little right now. He navigated to the silent coordinates Lyra had once told him were her perfect place, a stretch of nebula she had always wanted to see up close, a place she planned to visit with him after they retired. She said the gas clouds looked like a giant hand reaching across the galaxy. Marcus had laughed at the idea back then. Now he saw what she meant. A faint lavender glow filled the screen as the ship drifted into the folds of the nebula. It was peaceful, muted, a sanctuary untouched by war. For the first time since her death, Marcus removed his armor completely. He laid it out piece by piece on the deck, the chest plate that had carried her name etched inside, the gauntlets he had worn through 2 campaigns, the helmet that had become the symbol of Deathwalker. In the empty ship, the metal clink echoed like a ritual. He lowered himself onto the floor and let exhaustion fold him forward until his forehead touched the cold surface. His breath shook, not from rage, not from adrenaline, but from the kind of grief that hollowed a person out and left them echoing inside. When he finally stood, he carried in his hands a small hollow crystal. It contained Lyra's last message to him, the one she recorded before the mission where she had been taken. He had never opened it, not out of fear, but because opening it meant accepting that it was truly the last. He inhaled deeply and activated it. Lyra appeared in soft blue light, smiling gently, her hair tied back, her eyes bright with determination. "If you're seeing this, trouble found me," she began, voice steady despite the danger she must have sensed. "And I know what you're thinking right now. You're planning to tear the galaxy apart. Marcus, love, look at me." She leaned a little closer in the projection. "I need you to remember something. Not everything needs to be destroyed to make things right. You're stronger than your anger. You always have been." Marcus clenched his jaw as her image flickered. Her voice washed over him like a memory he wasn't ready for but desperately needed. "And if things go badly, I know you'll come for me. That's who you are. But promise me you won't lose yourself on the way. Promise me you won't let grief become the only reason you breathe." She smiled softly then, a smile that broke him more than any scream could have. "I love you. If I'm gone, promise me you'll still live." The message ended, leaving Marcus standing alone in the quiet hum of the ship. He pressed the crystal to his forehead, a silent vow forming, one he wasn't sure he could keep yet. But it was a promise he would try to honor. The Deathwalker AI broke the silence with a gentle notification. "Incoming transmission. Origin, Earth." Marcus almost muted it, but something made him pause. He accepted the signal. Admiral Reyes appeared, her stern expression softened with something close to sympathy. "I'm not here to drag you home," she said. "I just wanted to tell you what's happening." She pulled up a series of images, Traxori crowds kneeling in their plazas, universities teaching human history for the first time, militaries dismantling weapons, leaders signing treaty amendments without debate. "You didn't just punish them. You changed them. The galaxy is watching, Marcus. They're afraid of you, but they're also listening. Humanity has more influence now than we've had in centuries." Marcus said nothing. Influence meant nothing to him. Reyes seemed to understand. "There's one more thing." She hesitated. The council reviewed Lyra's case. She was right. Her mission prevented a genocide planned by a rogue Traxori faction. She saved millions. We're naming a peace initiative after her. The Lyra Protocol. It's going to protect civilians across half the galaxy. His breath caught. She had saved millions, and he hadn't been able to save her. "Take the time you need," Reyes finished softly. "Just don't disappear out there." The transmission ended. Marcus stared at the nebula, its violet folds swirling like a slow, cosmic tide. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine Lyra beside him, her hand slipping into his, whispering that the stars were still beautiful. The ache didn't fade, but it changed shape, less like a wound, more like a scar that would always remind him why he kept going. He powered up the engines and set a course toward Earth, not to return permanently, not to rejoin command fully, but because her memory deserved to rest somewhere more meaningful than deep space. On the journey back, he received thousands of messages from across the galaxy. Survivors thanking him, Traxori civilians begging forgiveness, human citizens calling him a hero. Marcus didn't reply to any of them, but he read each one. It mattered that Lyra's death had shaken the galaxy awake. It mattered that fear had been replaced with accountability. Yet there was a deeper realization forming in him now, one he hadn't expected. Lyra hadn't wanted the galaxy to drown in blood. She had wanted to learn, and by acting with precision instead of destruction, Marcus had honored her far more than by raising a planet. When Earth finally came into view, blue and soft and alive, Marcus felt a pressure loosen in his chest. He descended through the atmosphere quietly, without a fleet escort or a welcoming ceremony. He landed at a small, isolated base near the old lake where he and Lyra once spent a weekend pretending the war was just background noise. He stepped out of the ship, carrying the hollow crystal and a single white memory shard, the traditional human marker for someone lost beyond the stars. He placed the shard beside the water, not as a grave, as a promise. "I'll live," he whispered, voice barely audible. "For you." The wind carried his words across the surface of the lake. For the first time since her execution, Marcus felt something other than pain inside him. It wasn't peace yet, but it was direction. He turned back to Deathwalker, but instead of boarding, he paused. A new mission request blinked on his hollow band. A diplomatic escort along a fragile front where violence threatened to erupt again. Normally, he would have ignored it, but Lyra's message echoed in his mind. Not everything needs to be destroyed to make things right. Marcus accepted the assignment. He wasn't finished with the galaxy, and the galaxy wasn't finished with the human who walked through death without fear.